Sake of time, are you good to go?
Yes.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. If we have not met, my name is Mike Delaney. I serve as the Vice President of Business Partnerships with the Nebraska Hospital Association. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. If you wouldn't mind, please mute your microphones just to avoid background noise. To poke fun at myself here, just forewarning, we have our 4-year-old home today, so I'm hopeful that I don't have my own disruption as a parent, as he may wander in here trying to find dad. But thank you all for spending what is likely your lunch hour with us. And just a friendly call out, as you can tell, this webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be sent out to all registered attendees. So, with some brief context, through NHA services, I have the privilege to work alongside trusted partners that deliver member-approved solutions that address complex challenges facing Nebraska hospitals. These programs not only create measurable value for our members, but also generate non-dues revenue that helps stabilize NHA membership dues and directly supports our mission and advocacy efforts. With this program, it takes strong, dependable partners to maintain that trust and success, and that is exactly what we have with the NHA Connectivity Consortium. As you'll see momentarily, this consortium continues to grow, and we take pride in ensuring our members fully leverage the opportunities and subsidies available through the USAC program. So with that, it is my pleasure to introduce one of our trusted consultants with the consortium and personal friend of mine, Randy Resnick. So Randy, I'm going to pass the ball to you and let you take it from here.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks everyone for allowing us to be with you on your lunch hour and spending a little time to learn about this year's progress with the Connectivity Consortium. We've got a small enough group today that if you have questions along the way, just shout them out or chat them in, and we'll try to address them as we go. All right, just to make sure everybody is on the same page, because there's a lot of turnover in this space sometimes, and make sure everyone on the call knows exactly what we're talking about and be very clear. The program, the overriding program that we work under, it's the Healthcare Connect Fund. It's an FCC Universal Services Fund program, and it's administered by USAC. You'll hear us say USAC a few times in the presentation. Currently over 700 million for 2025. That number's a little shaky because they bring in future funds from previous years that haven't been used. So so far there's always been, other than 1 year, there's always been funds to match the amount of applications that go in. The program subsidizes broadband connectivity, your internet services, as well as the infrastructure and maintenance and management of that infrastructure. Provides a 65% subsidy on the services, and it encourages the use of consortiums. And we have found that using consortiums is where healthcare providers can really maximize their use of the funds. Who's eligible? If you're a nonprofit healthcare provider on this call, you're probably eligible. And but to be specific, along with not-for-profit hospitals, rural health clinics, community health centers, mental health providers, teaching institutions that teach healthcare, and a consortium of the above. Non-rural, even though the overarching umbrella onto the program is the rural healthcare program, non-rural HCPs can participate if they belong to a consortium that stays mostly rural, and that exists in Nebraska's consortium. So any hospital that is in a non-rural position, the Hospital Association has created a vehicle for you to join. And the largest hospitals are eligible, but there is capped support for the largest hospitals. All right, so I wanted to just briefly touch on some subjects that we get asked a ton of questions about. And the first one is in 2024, there was a ruling by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals that ruled that the whole Universal Services Program was unconstitutional. And so it went under appeal. It was the issues cited were are these attacks? And by the way, you folks, if you didn't know, you all contribute to this fund personally and professionally. If you look at the bottom of your cell phone bill, it'll be apparent. In the tax section, there'll be a little line item for the Universal Services fee. And so they challenged whether it was a tax or a fee, and whether USAC was an eligible authority to collect tax. And in the end, this June, the Supreme Court overruled the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals and ruled that the FCC does have authority to build this program, and it is lawful and constitutional. So that was a little hurdle that got overcome this year. Secondly, we get asked a ton about the new administration and what's going on with the federal funding in this program. And so, first of all, this particular program was built by a law and by a congressional act, and it would have to be unseated by the same. Secondly, we looked at the new head of the FCC, who was recently appointed with the new administration, and what his views were on the Universal Services funds. And he actually has said quite a bit about that. He wrote the FCC section of the Project 25 document that was always disavowed during the election, but seems to have a lot of traction now. And the new chairman, Brendan Carr, is actually an advocate of the Universal Services Program and believes that in some ways that it has been underfunded based on some of the high-tech companies that are able to take advantage of the program but don't have to contribute like telecom companies do. Believes that there can be an expanded contribution base for the Universal Services Fund. He does advocate for some reform, which I think we can all nod our heads to, that there's some reform needed. And some of those reforms revolve around the expanding contribution base, that little bit that's on your cell phone bill, and also some of the overbuilding that has potential in the program of some of the urban and built out areas getting funds. And so anyway, we can probably look for in the future and here's what we're taking, and our expert opinion is we are optimistic of the fund's future. We think that it's going to be a strong, vital program for years and years to come. But we do believe that there will be some changes probably over the next few years, and probably good and needed changes. All right, I'm going to introduce Tao and Gwen from our team, and she's going to talk briefly about the Nebraska Universal Services Program.
Yeah, thank you, Randy. All right, everyone. So the Nebraska State Telehealth Fund Program, also known as NUSF-57, is administered by the Nebraska Public Service Commission. Each year, the program allocates $1.5 million from the Nebraska Universal Service Fund to help healthcare providers expand access to broadband and telehealth services across the state. NUSF-57 serves as a secondary funding source for healthcare providers who are already receiving federal support through USAC. The program does offer up to 25% reimbursement for eligible recurring and non-recurring broadband-related costs. Now, as a consortium, our role is to handle all documentation for our members. Since we already manage all the paperwork for USAC, we're able to streamline the process and take care of the NUSF filings as well. So by combining the 65% USAC support with the 25% Nebraska grant, our members can achieve 74% in total savings on their eligible broadband costs. Right, next slide. So let's take a look at our application history. In 2023, we applied for 66,414. In 2024, that number grew to 144,000. And in 2025, we have already applied for 470,354. So please keep in mind these figures are undiscounted, meaning they represent the full service cost before any savings from NUSF and USAC support are applied. Now, as with any program, there are a few challenges. One key requirement is that service providers must have a Nebraska carrier code and hold active state certification. So an active state certification means they must be listed on one of the following carriers listed below. So if a service provider doesn't currently have a Nebraska code and certification, they can still become eligible. They just need to go through the registration process with the state. And then another challenge is we are still waiting for reimbursements since filing's begun. We've been in communication with the state and we've been told they are currently finalizing the 2023 applications. So we're hopeful that reimbursements will begin soon.
Thanks, Tal. Again, if there's any questions, please chat those in or speak up. Not, we'll be moving on to the next section. All right, so we're going to go back to the main program and we're going to discuss eligible services real quick. Sometimes this might be a review for some people on the call. In other cases, this might be the first time you're hearing some of these things. In the first case, you're going to see the upper left-hand box, data and wide area network circuits. So this is if you have a data circuit that you're connecting buildings or connecting to the outside world, and you're paying a carrier a monthly recurring fee for that, it's probably an eligible service. Internet is just a part of those wide area network circuits, along with PRIs. It's an old phone circuit. This might be an area ripe for reform from the FCC. Change that to SIP or something. But anyway, those are the main monthly recurring costs that are eligible in the program. And the reason I have these two colored red is we see regularly people have been participating in this program for years. And when we look at their participation, they're only participating in data circuits or internet circuits, their monthly recurring spend. And although the program is this big, they're only taking advantage of this. And it's probably the low-hanging fruit. And in some cases, it may be the preponderance of the spend. But what we've seen as a company, not only in Nebraska, but in other states, when you start including the infrastructure and the management of that infrastructure in with that funding, the funding that hospitals get really escalates. And we've got some data will show that. So things also eligible in the program are the infrastructure to make these work: switches, routers, and firewalls. Not only the equipment, but the maintenance and licensing. Sometimes that can exceed the cost of the equipment over the life, as well as network management and network operations. So whether you're doing your own management of your own network or you have a third-party IT support provider that's doing that for you, those can be reimbursable expenses. Fiber projects, pre-build to all the way through the operational costs, as well as some offsite centers are available. And the green boxes are where consortiums have advantages, because those are available to consortium members where they're not necessarily available for individual filers. So in order to get maximum funding under the program, we always encourage everybody to join a consortium and file as a consortium member, because it expands your eligibility. I mentioned in specifically those consortium advantages, I mentioned those eligible only items for consortiums, But I didn't mention higher caps on infrastructure projects. So if you're filing individually, if you're a hospital that's rural and you're filing individually, and you file an infrastructure project, you're going to be capped at $50,000. Whereas when you join a consortium, that number grows to $50,000 times the number of people in the consortium, whether or not they're involved in your project. And so right now, with the amount of folks in the number of sites in the AHA Connectivity Consortium, projects up to $6 million are eligible now. And granted, not everyone's going to have multi-million-dollar projects. However, we did have a project, infrastructure project that exceeded $1 million last year from a member. So, you know, it's helpful to have those caps in place when the time comes. And there's some rural hospitals, and some rural hospitals going to team up with their county at some point, and they're going to say, we're going to build fiber together, and there's going to be an opportunity to fund that. And when that time comes, having that large cap in place will also be really helpful. Also, some of the advantages of specifically of the NHA Connectivity Consortium is, and the reason I bring this up is we have a number of consultants that are helping folks to form their own consortiums, and they're not necessarily kept abreast of the obligations of being a consortium lead. And audits and record keeping are part of that. There's an obligation to keep records, and there's a ton of records that need to be kept up, and mainly so that they're audit ready for when that time occurs. We have not seen an audit, at least our consortium in Nebraska has not seen an audit. Our company has seen audits in other states, and I can tell you that it's a rigorous process that requires a ton of documentation, and it can even involve people coming on site and taking pictures, and or you taking pictures and sending them in. But they really, the audits are really trying to keep out waste, fraud, and abuse, and which I think is a good thing, to be honest, because this is one program that self-polices, and they self-police really well. And I think this may be one reason they've been kept out of some of the scrutiny, is they do a really good job of self-auditing. So, if you're thinking about joining the consortium, you have another consultant, you might ask them how they handle audits and who takes lead, if there's any other charges along with that, because it's a pretty strenuous process that can go on. Tracy, did our last one go on for a year and a half, 18 months or so?
Yeah,
in Kansas?
Yeah, almost 2 years, but 0 deficiencies.
Yeah. And the reason for that is we don't get creative with our applications. We really try to hone in on knowing exactly what's eligible and what's not, and we don't apply for things that we think that might not get approved, or that you say it's either we know or we don't. There's some gray area that we'll try to get some clarification on that, and if it's really gray, we might go ahead and submit. But the reason we get clean audits is because we follow the law to the T. Appeals is another thing. These applications will get denied on occasion. It happens to everybody, and there's a number of reasons for that. And some of the reasons are that USAC has changed the interpretation of the way they view something. And so we may have an application, a repeat application. We've got it funded for 3 years in a row for a hospital. Same service, same vendor, same price. We submit it the 4th year, it gets denied. And so because we only file for things that we know are going to be eligible, we appeal every denial that we can. And in this year we had some issues, and so we're going to wait for some more clarity around next year's applications, because some of USAC's new interpretations of some of the expense categories. So again, ask your current what happens when denials happen, and what's the process. In this consortium, we appeal it. We'll even appeal it to USAC and the FCC, and and we do that just as part of our services in the consortium. Also, what we found for people to get maximum funding under the program is that their IT staff has to be educated in the program, has to know what's eligible, and has to start building that into their planning process. And so part of our what we do every year is educate every team, because believe it or not, there's some turnover out there in the IT world. And so we make sure that that everybody's educated, and in many cases, we're the face of continuity to the program for the hospital because of their IT turnover situation. So that's just part of what we do as well, to make sure that people are getting their maximum funding. And then as well as NUS 57, those are also no charge applications, just as part of what we do on the federal level. Now, we're going to go through some data, and you may decide, hey, this sounds pretty cool. Maybe I want to join the consortium, but I've got some existing agreements in place, or I don't know these guys, but I know my last consultant who's been getting me funding for years and years. So maybe I just want to, stick my toe in the water gently. So the program is really flexible, like our friend below, and it allows you to do anything you like in terms of filing. So you could belong to multiple consortiums at the same time. You can be filing individually as a hospital and file some things with a consortium. And so it's never an all or nothing proposition. It's always what's most flexible for you, and what you feel most comfortable in is what's going to get you the most dollars out of the program at most efficient way for you. And so there are some hospitals in Nebraska that we work with, and they have had a consultant in place filing for those circuits in those top two boxes that we showed you and colored in red. And they said that they just want to keep those consultants in place and just file for those circuits that way. And what we do is we file for the infrastructure and network management and the other things, and that's perfectly fine. We will find additional things to file for, and we'll stay out of the other consultants' way. So that's a perfectly good way, and we're happy to do that as long as you want, forever even. So I just wanted to point that out, that it's never an all or nothing proposition. So it's however what's most comfortable. All right, so we'll get into some of the data, what we've been doing in the consortium. Started in 2021, which was in the middle of the pandemic, which is pretty convenient there. So we had a little bit of a slow start. I think Grand Island and Lexington were our first two. Started off, and then we have added a few hospitals annually since we then it started in 2021. So you can see we started less than $500,000. Starts there at $1 million, jumps to $2 million, goes over $5 million. There was a large hardware award for one hospital in this year. So that's why it might be a little larger than even the next year. But the trend is good. The hospitals are joining and actually seeing results. Here's a thing that we like to show, and this is and where we get this data. This is our data, which is synced with USAC's open data. And anybody can pull this same data just by going out to the usac.org website, pulling it into their own database and doing the reports. But it's open data available to anybody. Because it's a federal program, they make the data available. So what we've done here is taken the same graph, but these are committed funds. The last one showed applied for, committed, and then dispersed. This is just the committed funds from the consortium. And it's split out based on the eligibility categories. So it's cool to see, especially for us, that we've been saying since 2021, people aren't taking full advantage of the program. And then, as we start going through the years and filing their applications, you can see a high degree of their applications is in network management and equipment. And you can see that if we were only filing for data, like many people do, you can see what they would be missing. The data is the blue box on the top, and there's a little orange slice also that includes infrastructure. That includes the data. That's really what most people are filing for exclusively. And so as we have helped people take advantage of more of the program, their funding has grown. And here's where you can really see it. Take another look at this data. I told you I'd do some data deep dives. So I took a look at the hospitals that are in the consortium. There's 12 hospitals. I can't remember many sites off the top of my head. I think I had on a previous slide. But this is their participation in the program before and after joining the consortium. So we started filing applications for Lexington and Grand Island in 2021, and then some other folks joined. But the folks that joined, this is their graph of their participation before and after. So I took a average from 2020 and before, averaging a little over $400,000 in applications. 2 years in, we're up to 1.2 million for the same hospitals for their applications. So the funding tripled 2 years in. So it's not just a 50% increase, it's a 3x. When you look at this one, 5x. And if you average, it averages 2 million. So it tells you that the average hospital that has joined the consortium has 4 and 5 times their applications and their subsidy dollars since joining the consortium. So we're pretty proud to see that. And you can see, because we have this one also by expense category, the reason that they're getting more dollars, because they're taking better advantage of the funds. All right, so next I'm going to turn this over to Tracy, and she's going to talk a little bit about the application cycle for the next coming year.
Thanks, Randy. Yes, for those that have participated in the past, you probably know the routine. It's a July 1 through June 30th fund year every year. In the fall, we start reaching out to our members and do the deep dive into their sites and services and get ready for the funding year. Because it is a federal program, we have to follow the federal guidelines for fair and open bidding and follow their timeline as well. We will submit an RFP for the consortia, and we'll ask for everything for all sites and all services to make sure we don't leave anything out, and we'll work with you and uncover what's eligible and what's not. And the RFP will post for 28 days. On that 29th day, we circle back around and then start looking at what we are going to request funding for. The application period to request the dollars opens up on December 1st and closes hard deadline midnight Eastern time on April 1st. So we've got those 4 or 5 months to get everything submitted. For equipment purchases, that's where the timeline really comes into play. You have to purchase it during the fund year. So right now we're working on the 26 fund year, July 1 of 26 through June 30th of 27. That is when equipment purchases would need to take place for this fund year. On the next slide, we've got that one where it just shows that it's an annual program. So we'll walk through the details of this with you, talk through what you need and when we would need to file for it. So right now we are in the middle row, filing for the bottom row. So you can look to see how far in advance that we're working to get these applications submitted for you.
Thanks, Tracy. I've got this next slide in because we're, in the business of helping people maximize their funding. Whether you're using us or somebody else or just doing this yourself, these are probably good things to keep in mind. If you have somebody in your organization that you assign this role to get your USAC funding, and they should be knowledgeable about IT spend. And there should be something in their goals and objectives about the program. We see time and again, this program is put off onto IT folks that are only have their only goals as system uptime and application uptime. And then this program just turns into a big pain in the neck for them. So if having a program champion versus someone who thinks it's a pain in the rear, will get you more funding. Also, helping folks like us become self-sufficient within your account. So rather than having us bug you for invoices, because invoices and trading invoices is always a part of the program, whether it's part of the application process or whether it's part of getting the money at the end, we always need invoices. And so if we can go get those ourselves, however that would take place, read-only access into a portal, invoices being emailed out and we're on the distribution list, all those things, to the extent that we're self-sufficient, it's the extent that you have a less of a lift to get the same dollars out of the program. Planning ahead is also something. If you haven't used the program to get infrastructure funded, planning ahead is something that's going to be a little different. People that haven't purchased infrastructure in the program have typically purchased equipment when it breaks or dies or it becomes end of life. But once you start, and we've seen it time and again, and I think you saw it even in the graphs, there's some things that need to come together to have infrastructure funded. They got to know about it, number one. Number two is your infrastructure has to come to cycle, to the end of cycle. And then number three, you're able to go through the whole USAC process and the time frame. And what we've seen is year one, year two, that's a hard shift for people to make. And they just purchased a brand new firewall a year ago. I mean, all these things. But we see year two, year three, that people that are knowledgeable working with us and in the program. That's when we start to see a lot of the infrastructure get funded. So planning ahead. We also have to prepare vendors because vendors are part and parcel to every application that goes in. They're all tied to a vendor. So your vendors have to be certified. In many cases, they need to change their language to match USAC's expectations. And so being able to work with vendors and preparing them also that you're participating in this program is also key to getting that infrastructure funded. All right, next steps. If anyone on the call is maybe interested in taking another look and becoming a member, if you would like, what we can do is schedule an individual meeting and we can take a look at your funding and see if we see any gaps. And if they decide that maybe there's something that we can take a look at here in the next funding year, we do have to execute some membership documents. It's a federal program after all, and we get those out of the way, and then we'll schedule our onboarding, which it looks like a lot like our annual kind of maximization process that we go through to help you get maximum funding under the program. But the first thing is if you're an existing member, we're going to call you to schedule these meetings. Please take the call. Please schedule the meetings with us. It's going to help you get more funding. If you're a new member, we do have to take a little extra step. It can take 3 to 4 weeks, sometimes maybe even longer, to get these packets done, get the USAC administration to get your sites into the consortium. So if you're thinking about it, there's no time like the present. We'll get late into the winter and it'll be too late. If you're thinking about it, just reach out and we'll be happy to walk through that with you. All right, wanted to go through the service fee example, just to let everyone know. I think some people do know. We charge a contingency fee of 25% of the funds that are received. And the way that breaks down is if you have a cost of a circuit, it's $1,000. The subsidy is $650. Once you get those funds, we'll send an invoice out for 25% of that, which has a net effect of bringing it down almost 49% from what you would have spent in the past. Now, I'm just going to say, we know that there are people that do this for less, and we think a lot of those folks, not all, there are good options, but a lot of those folks that are charging less, the same people that are leaving out the infrastructure for you. We're going to be focusing on our value of doubling, tripling, quadrupling your funds, and make up for the fee that way. So I just wanted to address that because we do hear things from time to time about that. Hardly any of our clients, once they're members of the consortium, give us grief about the fees. They enjoy tripling, quadrupling their applications and dollars, and they see that net out to more dollars in the end. All right. Program oversight. The Hospital Association is the owner of the consortium. Mike's the owner now. Used to be he and John, but now it's Mike after his promotion. Congrats. Then we have us, and it takes 3 of us to do what one of Mike does. So there's 3 of us shown up. So reach out to any of us individually, or you can reach out to info@fedfunding.net. Reach out to Mike. All of that will get you to the right person, and we'll get you started up and onboarded. And we will open it up to questions now. You can chat those in, or just raise your hand, or however you'd like to do that.
Well, first off, thank you, Randy and Tracy and Tal. Thank you for your thought leadership and education and willingness to serve NHA member hospitals. We're certainly here to help, and that is the end goal. So to the NHA members on the call, this is an opportunity to ask the experts if there's anything lingering related to this program. Let's give it just 30 seconds and see if there's any questions that come in, and if not, we will conclude.
Did I see one come in via chat?
Yeah, I think Tracy jumped in and addressed that question. But the question, Randy,
okay, I got it.
Yeah, just a question related to time frame, which we covered.
Yep, there's no time like the present to be prepared for the application window this winter.
It's always fun embracing pauses here. So
Silence.
So, well, we'll take the silence as Randy will compliment you that you're able to cover the questions that maybe would be on people's mind. But I do also want to thank you all for attending the webinar and being a part of this. If you have questions, please reach out to myself. I'm more than happy to get you streamlined to the team with Federal Funding Group. And again, to the team at FFG, thank you for your commitment and what you do on behalf of NHA member hospitals. So with that, everyone have a great rest of your Thursday. Enjoy the weekend coming up, and we will see you all soon.
Thank you.